Right now, as you're hearing this, Mercury is retrograde in Leo, and something you thought was finished has already turned around and started moving back toward you. This is not the usual retrograde warning about delays and forgotten passwords. This week carries a message you were never supposed to miss. Something that was left unsaid. Something waiting. It may arrive through a person who resurfaces. It may rise from inside you as a truth you already half knew. But when it lands, it will confirm something you've quietly sensed for a long time. And there's a reason you found this now. On July 31st, a narrow portal opens, and the message is already in transit. Here is what makes this one different. On July 18th, Mercury stationed retrograde at 15 degrees of Leo, the sign of the heart, a bold expression of the things you were too proud or too afraid to say out loud. This is not a retrograde about lost passwords and missed trains. Leo rules identity, visibility, the authentic performance of who you are. So this backward turn moves through the words you swallowed to protect an image, to avoid a confrontation, to keep the peace at your own expense, and it lands inside a larger disruption. Just days earlier, in early July, Uranus entered Gemini, shaking the entire architecture of how we speak, how we listen, how we connect. The wiring of communication itself is being rebuilt. This retrograde is happening inside that live rewiring. But none of this is the peak. The peak arrives on July 31st, when the Sun and retrograde Mercury meet in the heart of Leo, an interior alignment called a Kazemi. What that moment unlocks is the reason you were brought here, and that is exactly what we open next. Before you understood any of this, your body already knew. Think about the nights lately, replaying a conversation that ended long ago, rehearsing what you should have said, feeling the strange certainty that someone is thinking about you right now, and that quiet, illogical ache that something is still unfinished, even when every practical part of you insists it's over. That is not anxiety. That is not your imagination inventing ghosts. This is the retrograde pulling on a thread you never got to tie off. A bond, a person, a moment that never received its honest naming, its clean apology, its real conversation. And notice something deeper. There was a version of you that went quiet around them. A part you softened, edited, or performed differently to keep something intact. That silence piece is what's rising now, pressing up through the surface, asking to be spoken. Here is what I need you to hear, because it is the whole promise of what comes next. You did not misread it. The feeling you dismissed was accurate. And this retrograde is the exact cosmic mechanism designed to hand you the confirmation, which raises the question, what confirmation and when? So let me tell you exactly what this portal is carrying, because it is not one message. It is three, arriving in sequence. The first is the truth about a bond that was left deliberately vague. Someone could not, would not, or simply did not know how to name what it actually was. And that unfinished definition is about to be spoken clearly, one way or another. The second is a confirmation of your own perception, that thing you sensed but questioned, the reading of a situation you almost let others talk you out of. You were about to learn you were right all along. And the third is the hardest one. It is a message from your own voice, the part of you that went quiet, accommodating, or invisible in a place that never felt fully safe. That silent self is being handed a microphone. 3 revelations, and they do not arrive randomly. They all converge on a single point, the Kazemi. That is the mechanism, and it is next. So let me place you exactly inside this window, because timing is everything now. Mercury has been retrograde since July 18th. That means we are already in the middle of the backward review, not approaching it, not waiting for it. The excavation has begun. Whatever was buried in that vague bond, whatever you doubted, whatever you silenced, it is already rising toward the surface as you listen. Now here is the point everything is bending toward. On July 31st, The Sun and retrograde Mercury align exactly at 9 degrees of Leo. This is the chasm, Mercury's reset point, the moment the old messages stop drifting and crystallize into something undeniable. But mark this carefully. The chasm is the peak of the portal, not the end of it. The clarity ignites on the 31st. It does not fully move outward into real spoken communication until Mercury stations direct on August 11th. So, name your window. Everything you receive between now and August 11th, through another person, a memory, a dream, or your own inner voice, that is the message. And how it reaches you is the next thing you need to understand. So how it reaches you begins with the first message. And this one is the hardest, because it names something you were told to leave nameless. There was a bond in your life that never received the word it deserved. Maybe it was called a friendship when it was clearly more. Maybe it was a person you loved out loud, only in the privacy of your own chest. Maybe it was chosen family, a mentor, someone who held you before you knew how to hold yourself, and the world never gave you permission to call it what it was. Leo does not let the heart's truth stay buried, and Mercury, retrograde in Leo, at the chasm, pulls that specific bond back into the light and finally attaches the word to it. Notice how the message arrives. It may not be a conversation. It may be a memory that ambushes you in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, a dream where their face returns with startling clarity, a sudden knowing that lands with certainty you cannot explain. Let yourself feel the word for it, because the second message is close behind, and it asks something sharper, not what the bond was called, but whether you trusted what you felt. And there it is, the sharper question. Did you trust what you felt? Because at some point, someone told you that you were imagining it, that you were too sensitive, too intense, too much, that your read on the situation was wrong, that you were making something out of nothing, that the feeling in your body could not be trusted. And slowly you began to believe them. You started editing your own instincts before they could finish speaking. Here is where Mercury retrograde in Leo does its quiet, precise work. Leo rules the solar self, the part of you that knows its own worth without asking permission. And when Mercury turns backward through this sign and meets the sun of the chasm, it does something rare. It reverses the distortion. It restores the signal between what you sensed and your confidence in sensing it. This message is not an apology from anyone else, though one may come. It is the return of your own authority to your own mind. You are not crazy. You are reading it correctly the entire time. Feel that land, because trusting your perception again is the door, and behind it waits the third message, from the part of you that was silenced most completely. Behind that door is a voice you may not have heard in years, not someone else's, yours. Think back to who you became in certain rooms, the version of you that spoke more softly at the family table, the self you shrank in a relationship where being fully seen felt dangerous, the identity you edited down until it was palatable enough to be tolerated. You did not lose that fuller voice. You put it away to stay safe, and then you forgot where you set it down. This is the most intimate work of Mercury retrograde in Leo. Leo governs authentic self-expression, the part of you meant to shine without apology. And when Mercury moves backward through this territory, it does not amplify that voice with noise. It clears the static so you can finally hear what it has been trying to say underneath the performance. The message is quiet, but unmistakable. Something has shifted. The old accommodation no longer fits. Staying small now costs more than being seen ever could. No one has to grant you permission. This return arrives from within, on its own timeline, most likely between now and August 11th. And when your own voice speaks again, something else becomes possible. But something else becomes possible only because of what happens on July 31st. This is the mechanism most people miss. There is a moment, brief and precise, when Mercury and the Sun meet at the exact same degree. When that happens, Mercury is said to sit in the heart of the Sun. The ancients called it chasm, and they treated it as a moment of purification, when truth is burned clean of distortion and finally revealed. Because Mercury is retrograde as this happens, it is an inferior chasmy, a rare interior meeting that resets the entire Mercury and Sun cycle. Everything you reconsidered, everything left unspoken, everything reversed during these weeks reaches its delivery point here, and it lands at 9 degrees of Leo, inside the season of authentic self-expression, the courage to be seen without apology. So, the truth being clarified is not abstract. It is about who you are when you stop editing yourself down. The chasmy does not force a conversation. It illuminates what was buried underneath the delay. So when your message arrives, before or after this date, you will not misread it. So how will you know when the message has actually landed? It rarely arrives loudly. A relationship that felt murky suddenly becomes obvious, obviously worth continuing, or obviously complete. A word, a moment, a single conversation arrives, and you recognize it instantly, because it names something you have carried for years without language. Then something shifts in how you hold yourself. Around August 11th, as Mercury stations direct, you notice less explaining, less apologizing, less compressing yourself to fit. But be gentle with this. The message may not be comfortable. Sometimes validation confirms a loss, a limit, a truth you must grieve before it finally releases you. You did not stumble onto this by accident. This message reached you because part of you was finally ready. Not just to hear it, but to receive it. So let it land. You are allowed to believe it. You are allowed to let it change what needs to change. If this found you at exactly the right moment, comment, "I receive it." Or name the person, the word, the part of yourself you are finally ready to hear from. And if you want to stand at the next threshold together, stay close. The universe is not finished speaking to you.